People often imagine love as something loud, the chemistry, the grand gestures, the emotional declarations, the moments that feel impossible to ignore. But some of the deepest forms of love are almost invisible. They exist in quiet companionship, steady presence, and the sense of peace you feel when someone simply feels like home. For an avoidant, that kind of quiet can communicate more than words ever could. For them, lasting commitment rarely begins with dramatic romance or endless reassurance. It develops slowly through something much more important: emotional safety. Someone who has spent years depending only on themselves may not be drawn closer by emotional intensity. What truly allows them to open is the realization that they can experience deep feelings without losing their independence or feeling overwhelmed by them. Many avoidants learn early that emotional closeness can come with discomfort. They may connect intimacy with criticism, pressure, losing control, or having their personal boundaries ignored. So they create distance as a form of protection. It isn't necessarily because they don't want love. Sometimes they simply learned that keeping people at arm's length feels safer. Then they meet someone who doesn't try to force their walls down. Someone who respects their space, understands their pace, and doesn't turn every moment of distance into a battle. Slowly, something unfamiliar begins to develop: peace inside connection. That peace can become the doorway to commitment. The safer they feel in their independence, the easier it becomes for them to naturally bring you into their private world. You don't have to chase them, convince them, or constantly prove why they should stay. What matters is creating a relationship where their defenses don't have to remain permanently activated. With an avoidant, emotional security is usually created through consistency rather than intensity. They notice how you respond when disagreements happen. They remember whether you respect their need for space. They observe what you do when they become quiet. They are looking for patterns. And when you remain emotionally steady instead of reacting with pressure or panic, something begins to change inside them. They start realizing that love doesn't automatically equal chaos. Closeness doesn't necessarily mean losing themselves. That realization can be deeply healing. Eventually, they may begin offering pieces of themselves they once kept protected. They contact you more often. They tell you small things about their day. They invite you into their routine. They become more comfortable simply being around you. A morning message, an invitation to spend time together, or a rare admission about something that scares them might look insignificant from the outside. But for an avoidant, these can be enormous acts of trust. What they're really communicating is, "I feel safe enough to let you closer." And that can mean far more to them than a dramatic declaration of love. Their commitment may not resemble the romance people usually expect. It may not involve constant affection or endless verbal reassurance. Instead, it often appears through dependability. When they genuinely commit, they're not simply agreeing to love you. They're choosing to remain emotionally present even when their instinct tells them to disappear. They're taking the risk of allowing someone to see the parts of themselves they have spent years protecting, because they believe the connection is worth the vulnerability. It takes time. It can feel uncomfortable. But once that decision becomes genuine, it can run remarkably deep. For an avoidant, forever may not sound like 1,000 promises. It may look like simply staying. When they let you into their world, they're not merely sharing their time. They're challenging years of learned emotional self-protection. Their love might be understated, but that doesn't make it shallow. They may express affection through consistency rather than intensity, understanding rather than control, and peace rather than emotional drama. In that sense, commitment becomes more than a promise. It becomes a transformation, from fear into trust, from isolation into shared peace, and from constantly protecting themselves to finally believing they can stay. And one of the clearest signs of that transformation is when they begin choosing your presence instead of automatically choosing distance. Avoidants are often associated with pulling away, but that withdrawal isn't always proof that they don't care. For some, closeness activates a deep fear of losing autonomy. Intimacy can feel like a threat to their freedom, so retreating becomes their automatic way of regulating difficult emotions. But when that pattern starts changing, something important is happening. They begin moving toward connection instead of constantly escaping it. This doesn't happen instantly. There may still be moments when they want closeness one day and space the next. They can feel caught between two powerful needs, the desire to be loved and the fear that love will consume them. What helps resolve that conflict is experiencing a relationship where they don't have to choose between intimacy and independence. When they discover that your closeness doesn't require them to surrender themselves, their body and mind can finally begin to relax. They learn that being with you doesn't mean giving up control. It can simply mean sharing life while still remaining themselves. At first, the changes may be almost impossible to notice. They stay a little longer. They talk a little more. They don't rush away after spending time together. They become comfortable sitting beside you without constantly needing something to say. These small moments can reveal a major internal shift. Their nervous system is slowly learning that connection can be calming rather than threatening. Where there was once tension, there is now comfort. Where there was once an automatic urge to escape, there is now curiosity. Your presence gradually becomes associated with peace instead of pressure. And that is a powerful psychological transformation. When an avoidant begins wanting your presence, it can mean they no longer experience closeness as emotional invasion. They aren't necessarily craving constant contact. Instead, they're beginning to appreciate the stability and comfort of having you nearby. You become someone they can rest around instead of someone they feel they must escape from. Their walls usually don't disappear because someone confronts them aggressively. They soften because repeated experiences of trust teach them that they don't need those walls every second. You may notice them reaching for your hand, sharing a thought they would normally keep private, or becoming completely comfortable with silence beside you. These gestures can seem ordinary, but for someone who once relied heavily on emotional distance, they can represent enormous progress. They are learning that safety doesn't have to exist only in solitude. It can also exist in another person's presence. And seeking closeness doesn't mean they suddenly stop needing independence. Healthy intimacy allows both things to exist together. They can have space without turning that space into emotional separation. They can be close without feeling controlled. They can open up without feeling completely exposed. They're no longer looking for freedom by running away from connection. They're beginning to discover freedom within a safe connection. That is what makes this stage so meaningful. Their love becomes less about performance and more about peaceful companionship. They choose to be near you because they genuinely want to, not because they're being pressured, chased, or obligated. Their quiet loyalty, their comfort around you, and their willingness to simply share ordinary moments can become some of the strongest evidence that their feelings have matured. When an avoidant starts seeking your presence, you may have become connected to their sense of inner peace, the person around whom they don't feel the need to constantly run. And when they finally begin revealing the chaos they normally keep hidden, that can be an even deeper expression of trust. Because allowing you to see what exists behind their calm exterior means they're no longer simply letting you into their life. They're letting you into themselves. For much of their lives, avoidants may have learned to treat emotions as something dangerous. Vulnerability can feel like an invitation to be hurt, while depending on themselves feels like the safest way to survive. So, they create an inner world that appears controlled from the outside, even when everything inside feels unsettled. Beneath that calm surface can exist fears they never discuss, insecurities they rarely admit, and a deep sense of emotional isolation. Letting another person enter that private world requires enormous trust. So when an avoidant begins showing you what is really happening inside them, it isn't a casual gesture. It can be one of the deepest forms of emotional commitment they know how to offer. In their own quiet way, they're telling you that they no longer experience you as someone they need to protect themselves from. They see you as someone who can witness their truth without using it against them. Avoidants often live behind emotional defenses designed to protect them from unpredictability. They've learned to keep their feelings contained and appear composed, even when they're struggling internally. Their need for distance isn't always a rejection of love. Sometimes it's simply the way they've learned to protect themselves. So when they finally stop hiding everything behind that calm exterior, something important has changed. Their desire to withdraw is becoming softer because they've discovered that your presence doesn't make their internal world more chaotic. Instead, you help create a sense of calm within it. It usually begins with small revelations. Maybe they tell you about something painful from their childhood, admit a fear they've never shared, or mention a personal experience they normally keep private. To someone else, it might seem like an ordinary conversation, but for an avoidant, every piece of personal truth can represent another section of a wall coming down. As they experience acceptance instead of judgment, they begin learning something they may have struggled to believe for years. They don't have to be perfect to be loved. Being vulnerable doesn't automatically lead to rejection. Being seen doesn't necessarily mean being controlled. And allowing someone close doesn't always result in pain. Their vulnerability may not come out smoothly. They might hesitate, lose their words, change the subject, or even apologize for becoming emotional. They may struggle to explain exactly what they're feeling. But underneath that awkwardness is something meaningful, a genuine desire to be known. At this stage, they're no longer trying so hard to appear untouchable. They want understanding more than admiration. They don't need you to see them as flawless. They need to know that you can see their imperfections and still remain emotionally safe. Opening up can also become a quiet test of trust. Someone who has spent years fearing rejection may wonder what will happen when you see the parts of them they consider difficult or broken. Your response matters. When you meet their honesty with patience rather than criticism, they begin developing a new understanding of love. They start learning that love doesn't require them to hide every weakness. And eventually, their vulnerability can move beyond fears and painful memories. They may begin telling you what they actually need. They may ask for comfort, reassurance, understanding, or space instead of simply disappearing. That is a major turning point. For someone who survived by keeping everything inside, revealing their emotional world can be the ultimate expression of trust. It's almost like saying, "I'm allowing you to see the parts of me that I usually keep hidden." That is when guarded affection begins turning into genuine intimacy. Their love doesn't need to be proven through dramatic gestures. Sometimes their greatest expression of love is simply telling you the truth, showing you their internal struggle isn't weakness. In many cases, it's evidence that they've become strong enough to stop hiding. They're not necessarily asking you to solve their problems. They're asking you to understand what they're carrying. And when you respond by staying present, rather than trying to control or fix them, the relationship can begin to feel less like a battlefield and more like a place of refuge. Another powerful sign of deepening love appears when an avoidant starts protecting the relationship instead of only protecting themselves. For a long time, Their instinct may have been centered around self-preservation, protecting their independence, avoiding dependence, keeping emotional control, creating distance before they could become too vulnerable. Love can feel attractive to them while simultaneously feeling dangerous. It offers warmth and connection, but it also creates the possibility of loss, betrayal, disappointment, or feeling trapped. So when they begin protecting the relationship itself, it shows that something inside them has shifted. The connection is no longer simply something they're afraid might hurt them. It has become something valuable enough to protect. Early on, an avoidant may disappear when conflict appears. Silence can feel easier than explaining themselves. Distance can seem safer than working through difficult emotions. But as their feelings deepen, they may begin staying even when things become uncomfortable. They may still need time to process. They may still struggle to communicate perfectly. But instead of abandoning the connection, they start looking for ways to repair it. That movement from escaping to repairing is enormous. It means the relationship has become more important than their automatic urge to withdraw. They also begin noticing your emotional experience, not just protecting their own boundaries. They may think twice before reacting. They become more aware of how their behavior affects you. They begin understanding that protecting their own peace shouldn't require destroying yours. Love slowly changes from self-preservation into mutual care. This doesn't happen because they suddenly become a completely different person. It happens through repeated experiences. They notice your patience. They recognize that you can respect their independence without trying to control them. They experience a form of love that doesn't demand that they abandon themselves. And gradually, they begin returning that same safety in their own way. You may notice them handling their triggers differently. When they're overwhelmed, they might still need space, but instead of disappearing without explanation, they tell you they need time. When an argument happens, they may still become uncomfortable, but they begin making an effort to resolve the issue, rather than simply walking away. Their behavior starts communicating something they may struggle to say directly. I don't want to lose what we have. That is emotional growth. They're discovering that staying connected doesn't automatically mean losing their freedom. In fact, a healthy relationship can give their independence greater meaning because now they're choosing connection rather than being forced into it. Protecting the bond becomes their quiet version of commitment. They may not casually promise forever, but their actions begin moving in that direction. They show up when it matters. They consider how important decisions affect both of you. They make room for the relationship in their future. When misunderstandings happen, they care enough to protect what exists between you. These actions may look ordinary from the outside, but they carry enormous meaning for someone whose instinct was once to stand alone. Deep love can be frightening for an avoidant because caring deeply means becoming vulnerable to pain. Yet when they continue choosing the relationship despite that fear, they're making a conscious decision that the connection is worth the risk. That is emotional maturity. They are no longer simply trying to survive love. They're learning how to build a life within it. When an avoidant starts protecting the relationship, they've moved from isolation toward inclusion. They aren't only protecting their heart from you anymore. They're learning how to protect the relationship alongside you. And that quiet devotion may not be obvious to everyone watching from the outside. But the person experiencing it can feel the difference. Their effort becomes more consistent. Their care becomes more intentional. Their presence becomes more dependable. What once frightened them becomes something they're willing to defend. Avoidant love rarely looks like a constant stream of dramatic words, overwhelming affection, or movie-like romance. It's often quieter, more grounded, and much harder to recognize unless you understand what their behavior actually means. For an avoidant, love can exist in the tension between wanting closeness and fearing it. They may spend years believing that emotional dependence is dangerous, so when they finally allow themselves to stay, that choice carries a significance most people may never understand. Their love may not look perfect from the outside, but when it becomes secure, it can be deeply rooted because it is built through consistency rather than performance. Avoidants often rely on emotional control and personal distance because those things make them feel safe. Their fear of dependence doesn't necessarily mean they lack deep feelings. Sometimes it means those feelings are more powerful than they know how to handle. And when they truly fall for someone, that carefully controlled inner world begins to change. They start caring more than they planned to. They feel more deeply than they're comfortable admitting. They think about you during moments when they once would have focused only on themselves. And slowly, almost without realizing it, the person who once believed they were safest alone begins discovering that there is another kind of safety: being understood, being accepted, and choosing to stay. Even when an avoidant feels something deeply, they may struggle to put those emotions into words. Instead, their feelings often appear through consistency. They might not repeatedly tell you how much they love you, but when you genuinely need them, they are there. They may not constantly shower you with affection, yet they remember the little things that bring you comfort, the situations that overwhelm you, and the things that matter most to you. For an avoidant, deep love often means slowly making space for you inside a world they once kept completely private. You may notice it through the quiet changes they make without drawing attention to them. They start adjusting their routines so you naturally become part of their life. They make room for you without announcing that they're doing it. You may also notice that silence begins to feel different around them. They can sit beside you without feeling the need to escape, explain themselves, or fill every quiet moment with conversation. Your presence stops feeling intrusive and starts feeling peaceful. That is a major shift for someone who once relied on distance to feel secure. Their love isn't necessarily about constantly proving how much they care. It's about protecting what has been created between you. Instead of chasing emotional highs, they begin valuing the calmness that comes from simply having someone they trust beside them. Their version of saying, "I'm here," may not come through a dramatic confession. It may simply be the fact that they continue showing up. When an avoidant truly sees you as someone they want in their life for the long term, their devotion often hides inside ordinary actions. They may not make huge promises about the future, but they'll continue making small efforts that keep the relationship strong. They understand the importance of personal space because they need it themselves. So when they care deeply, they may become protective of your need for solitude as well. They don't want to create unnecessary emotional chaos because peace has become one of the ways they experience love. They may make decisions that protect the stability of the relationship even when they don't know how to explain exactly why those choices matter. Sometimes their loyalty can even be mistaken for emotional distance. But there is a difference between being emotionally unavailable and expressing love quietly. An avoidant who is genuinely invested may not constantly seek reassurance or attention. They may find satisfaction in simply knowing the connection exists and remains secure. Their love can also have a deeply reflective quality. Because they tend to approach emotions cautiously, they may think before acting and process feelings internally before speaking about them. They often care more about what is genuine than what looks romantic from the outside. They would rather have something real than something impressive. They value emotional depth over performance and authenticity over appearances.
So when they finally commit, it usually isn't because they were swept away by a temporary emotional high. It is because after thinking, observing, and experiencing the relationship, they consciously decided to let you into a part of themselves that they don't easily share. For someone who protects their emotions so carefully, that decision represents enormous trust. It means you are no longer just someone passing through their life. You've become part of the emotional world they have spent years protecting.
And that kind of attachment doesn't disappear easily, because it wasn't created through excitement alone. It was built gradually through patience, understanding, respect, and repeated experiences of safety. Even when disagreements happen, they may still need to step away for a while. That's part of their emotional pattern. But pay attention to what happens afterward. If they come back and make an effort to reconnect, that return can communicate something powerful. I'm still here. They may not return with dramatic speeches or overwhelming emotion. Sometimes they simply return through their presence, their effort, or a small attempt to restore the connection. For them, consistency can say what words cannot. Their feelings don't necessarily depend on constant excitement, endless communication, or emotional stimulation. Their attachment can survive periods of distance, difficult conversations, and misunderstandings, because it is rooted in familiarity and trust rather than temporary intensity. Quiet love can be incredibly enduring when it becomes secure. What was once a fear of closeness slowly becomes a comfortable rhythm of connection. They begin to understand that loving someone doesn't have to erase their individuality. They don't have to surrender their freedom to experience intimacy. Real love can actually strengthen their sense of self. They don't have to become a completely different person to love deeply. They simply have to discover that closeness doesn't automatically mean losing themselves. And when they keep choosing your presence, continue making room for you, offer steady affection, and return after difficult moments, they are making a choice that may be difficult for someone with strong avoidant patterns. They are choosing connection despite fear. They are choosing to stay without feeling trapped. They are choosing to let love exist without needing to make it loud. Because sometimes the deepest commitment isn't spoken repeatedly. Sometimes it is found in the person who quietly remains, consistently cares, respects your peace, protects the connection, and keeps choosing you long after the excitement has faded. That is the quiet language of enduring love. And when an avoidant learns to speak that language, their silence is no longer distance. It becomes devotion.